Hey guys, welcome to the Erie Side Podcast with your hosts Dee,
Elena,
and Sophia.
We appreciate you guys listening, and I hope you are ready to get on the Erie side. Before we get into the show, we would appreciate if you could get the podcast a follow and make sure the bell notification is turned on so you'll be notified whenever we drop an episode. If you enjoy the show, we would love to have you leave us a review, and if there's a case suggestion or any feedback you'd like to share, feel free to send us a message in the text box below. Please follow us on Instagram, TikTok, and Facebook. Content warning. Before we begin, please be aware this episode contains detailed discussions about a disturbing and tragic event involving the gruesome killing of a family. We understand this subject may be deeply unsettling or distressing for some listeners. Viewer discretion is advised.
All right, Mom. You have a story for us today, right?
Yes, I do have a story for us today.
Perfect.
Okay. This story is about the Dardeen family.
So, what was the name?
Dardeen.
Dardeen.
I'm going to tell you a little bit about the couple and then get into it. And I'm going to give you some dates so you can see how far back this goes. Okay. First, there's Russell Keith Dardeen. He was born June 22nd, 1958. He liked his middle name better, so he went by the name of Keith. He married Ruby Elaine Cowling, and she also liked to go by her middle name, Elaine. They were married on August 1979 in Albion, Illinois. On July 5th of 1984, they had a son, Peter. Now we're in 1987. Keith is 29 and Elaine is 30, and they live in a beige and white mobile home nestled among woodland beside Route 37 just outside Ina, Illinois.
I feel like I may know this case.
Maybe you do. With them is their 3-year-old son, Peter. Just so you guys know, it's also close to Route 57, and I have actually driven by where they used to live. Unbeknownst to me, though. In 1987, Elaine became pregnant with the couple's second child. They had decided to name the baby either Ian or Casey, depending on whether it was a boy or a girl. The pending addition to the family had led Keith and Elaine to strongly consider moving. By late in the year, they had put the mobile home up for sale. Now, Keith worked as a water treatment plant operator at the nearby Rend Lake Water Conservancy District, while Elaine worked at an office supply store. In their free time, the couple played in the musical ensemble at the local Baptist church. The area which the young family lived in had been becoming increasingly violent, and the couple wanted to move somewhere safer for their children. Due to the increase of murders and rapes in the surrounding area, Keith was very protective of his family. If you look at the area, you never would have thought that they were having these kind of problems. In fact, Keith told his mother he was planning on moving back to Mount Carmel. He had regretted moving to Ina, and he was going to move back to Mount Carmel even if he didn't have a job. He had told her that the area was becoming too violent.
How far is Ina to Mount Carmel?
It's about an hour and 15 minutes.
Okay, so that's definitely some distance for them.
But that's not like super far. Like that's not something like they could still take day trips up to visit family and stuff.
Yeah, but it's not easy for them to like go
Right.
for the night necessarily.
Oh, for sure. It definitely helps paint a little bit of a better picture that they're further out, but they're still.
They're close to
Yeah.
family. It's
That
not
area
like-
they're in, that's a pretty rural area too, right?
It is, actually. It's mostly farmland. There isn't much going on. There are some bigger cities along the way, but nothing that you can say, wow. On November 18th of 1987, Elaine is 7 to 8 months pregnant. Keith didn't show up for work for his shift, nor had he called in sick. This was extremely out of character for him because he was a very reliable worker.
Really quick, what's his job again? Did you say?
He worked in the Rand Lake Water Conservancy District, and he was the plant operator.
Okay.
He had actually a very good job.
Yeah.
I feel like a lot of these cases start with somebody not showing up for work.
Mm-hmm.
Even his supervisor was concerned and called Keith's house phone, but there was no answer. The supervisor then called Keith's parents to see if they knew where he was. They both told his supervisor that they hadn't seen Keith. His parents then tried calling him. However, Keith didn't answer phone calls from his parents. This made them concerned, and they called the police. They arranged to meet the police at the family's home with the spare key. By evening, the police went to Dardeen's family to investigate, where they met Don Dardeen, which is Keith's father, who had bought keys to the trailer. Inside, they were met by a horrid scene that would mentally scar even the most hardened officers. What they found inside was a crime scene so violent and gruesome that it would haunt everyone involved for years to come.
Gosh.
The crime was considered too brutal and gruesome to even be reported on daytime TV at that time.
Wow. I'm a little nervous to hear what it is.
And I don't have all the details.
Because they don't even announce it, or because you're just...
If I had found it, I would share it since I gave a warning, but they don't even talk about it that much. But they do say enough for you to understand. They discovered the bodies of Elaine, Peter, and a newborn baby girl all lying in one bed.
Wow.
Whoa.
Both Elaine and Peter had been bound with duct tape and gagged before being brutally beaten to death with Peter's baseball bat, which had been a present from his father that year.
Wow.
Elaine suffered a blow on the right top of her head, which fractured her skull, and Peter suffered numerous abrasions and contusions, and his skull had been fractured.
Jeez.
Reports show Elaine had not been sexually assaulted. Now remember, Peter's only 3 years old. The ruthless attack and beating triggered Elaine to go into labor,
Wow.
and she had given birth to a baby girl.
Oh my God.
The killer or killers took no mercy on the newborn either and ended her life as soon as it began.
Wow.
She too was beaten to death.
Oh my God.
You're just brought into the world, and that's what you face.
Wow.
It's traumatic.
That is a whole new level of horrific.
And it's like, why?
Right? Like,
Yes.
where's the motivation? Like, just to kill?
It's just like torturous. Honestly.
Right.
It's ridiculous. I mean, you can't even talk about it. It's how bad it was.
Mm-hmm. Wait, when the officers got to the trailer, was Keith's father there too?
Keith's father was there. I don't think he was allowed to go in.
Go in. Okay,
Yes.
good.
I think they went in first and then they told them not to go in,
Okay.
from what I understand.
If the family had to see that, would just, oh my God.
The killer or killers took Elaine's body and laid her in her waterbed next to her dead infant and dead 3-year-old son.
And her waterbed, is that where she gave
The
birth?
water,
Oh,
it's
okay.
just that her bed was a waterbed. And then he decided to tuck them in.
Wow.
Wait, did you say how the 3-year-old died?
Yes, he was beaten also.
Oh, he was too.
Yeah, exactly like
So all
his mother.
4 of them were beaten.
No, I'm talking only about 3 right now. I'm not going to the 4th person.
Who's the 4th person?
The dad.
The father.
right?
Oh, okay. I was getting Peter confused with the father.
Oh, no, the father's Keith. Before leaving, the killer had made a sloppy attempt to clean the crime scene. I'll just say killer for now, but just so you guys understand, the police do not know if it's a killer or killers. Because the killer tried to clean up, there was a theory that he or they weren't in any rush to leave the crime scene. I'm not sure what the cleanup has to do necessarily as you go on. To me, it was a little confusing because why he, and I'm going to say he, cleaned it up and why that means he wasn't in a rush. I'm not sure. It was a trailer. It was out It was near the express, but it wasn't anywhere near other people. So I am assuming that they knew that no one was around.
Well, cleaning it up does take time, though. So maybe that's why they think he wasn't in any rush.
You may be right. So now they are unable to find Keith. But initially, they thought that he had slaughtered his family and then fled because his car was missing from outside the home.
Interesting.
However, the following day, Keith's body was discovered by hunters in a wheat field just over the Franklin County line, which is approximately a mile away from their mobile home.
Now, that's really interesting because I'm sure you're going to get into it, but I don't know if that goes to show he was the target or the person wanted Keith to not be found so that people are just assuming it's Keith and looking for Keith and not someone else. But there's definitely, I feel like, a reasoning behind their choice, and I'm curious as to what that was.
But I also wonder if Keith was alive when they took him, too.
That's true.
Or they took him first.
Right, and got him out, and then that's true to get him out of the way, because then it's all the stuff is a pregnant woman and her child, which is disgusting. But
who murders a pregnant woman and her
and then
newborn? Now it's now newborn baby, and then her 3-year-old. Like that is completely horrific. And a pregnant woman? Are you kidding me?
And then if it was just Keith, right? If their target was Keith, why kill them? And why
kill them at all? Like, right? I'm just wondering. We don't know. I don't know what you're going to share yet, Mom. But they seem like a very
sweet,
normal, Midwestern family.
Yes, I don't understand who would do something like that. If you're under some influence of drugs or something, I can see it. Or it sounds like if not, then it's high revenge because you are going to kill the father and the family. It's very brutal.
Sad part is they were planning to leave that area. They were so close to leaving.
Right. So close to getting out.
They obviously felt dangerous for a reason, obviously.
But I wonder if they'd not seen anything that made them feel like they were a target or anything like that, and that's why they wanted to leave, and that could have led to their death, or it was just like hearing stuff on the news that were like, okay, this is not safe anymore, we should just go.
They were seeing and hearing what was going on in the town.
Oh, okay.
And that was why they wanted to leave.
Okay.
Now, Keith had been shot once in the frontal skull, on the right side of his face, and on his left cheek. Additionally, his genitals had been chopped off.
Wow. What?
Correct.
Oh my gosh.
Oh my.
Whoever did this is completely just
unhinged.
I don't understand why they shot him and then did that. It's just brutal. But then they shot him. I don't understand.
It's like
they beat up the family,
right,
but shoot him and then do this.
Did they shoot him and then cut it off, or cut it off first and then shoot him?
I don't have that detailed information.
It seems like it's a little bit more personal with Keith.
Yeah, this is either very personal or somebody who's a psychopath who's enjoying the pain and the torture.
But if you're doing it personally with Keith, why are you killing the whole family?
Right.
We saw that with the Miyawaka family. They beat the father and then they killed the rest of the family, and you don't know
who was the
target. Right.
Right. And it seems personal with him, and they pulled him off to
they took him away.
Right. If they took him away, and if he was the target and he was alive, there should be no point of killing the family. I'm just having
unless they used that, like, unless they really wanted to hurt him. So first they killed them, let him see that scene to inflict as much pain on him as possible.
It would be hard to control him unless they were able to tie him down. But this is kind of why I'm like, maybe it is more than one person, because if they were to kill the family in front of him, someone would have to be able to hold him down, or
I feel like he would lose
restrict him.
His mind.
Right. And then that means that they took Keith, killed him. He was their person, like it was personal for them, but then still went back to the family.
The doctors must be able to know, though, whether that was removed post-mortem or pre-mortem.
That's also what I was wondering.
They may not want to tell anyone for the case to be solved. The other thing is, I'm having a hard time with this because if it's two of them and one takes the father and one stays behind, that means they're both kind of psychos because they're both brutal
Right.
murders. Now, if they took Keith and left those two behind, it just seems really strange. People usually don't take one, go 1 mile away, go back to kill other people.
Do we know when Keith officially went missing? If it was before he went home or he was already home and then...
The police have a theory and I get into it.
Oh, okay.
I can get more into what's going on.
Can I ask, where are the nearest neighbors in relation to their trailer?
I don't remember right now, but I know they weren't really close. It wasn't like in the suburb where you're right next to a neighbor. It was like their little home was just sitting there and there was nothing around them.
So nobody could hear them if they were screaming, for sure?
Most likely, even though they were very close to an expressway.
I'm wondering do you know if there are any other similar cases and brutality of this nature that happened in the area?
I would get into that also. Now, his 1981 Plymouth would later be found parked outside the police station in Benton, around 11 miles from the family's mobile home.
Wait, say that again?
His 1981 Plymouth, which is his car, would be found parked outside the police station in Benton, around 11 miles from the family's mobile home.
Wow, that's...
So they find him out in nature, and his car is at a police station.
That kind of feels like a taunt.
I also like to know, no cameras?
Right. Yeah. Okay. Is this not a police station?
What was it? Yes. Didn't this happen in 1979?
1987.
Yeah, but it's a police station. You have to have...
Well, this is a rural area. Don't forget.
The cameras might not be great, depending on how far away
they
they
may not have
park.
any cameras.
I don't think they had cameras.
Really?
I don't think they had cameras.
What? It was in the 90s, right?
No, 87.
87. They
87,
still
okay.
had cameras, but I don't think a lot of places had them.
What's
possible.
interesting to me is that you just said that the police didn't even release all the information on the brutalities that were done to their bodies. And in my opinion, we've already seen a lot of brutality just with what they have shared. I cannot even imagine it getting any more.
Right. What they left out.
I'm just assuming the beating was worse. They just gave us a part. Now, the inside was splattered with blood, indicating that Keith had been murdered there or had been mutilated there.
In the car.
In the car.
Okay.
Autopsies of the victims couldn't conclude who was killed first.
Interesting.
It was determined that they were all killed within an hour or two.
Wow.
Oh, interesting. Okay. That makes things...
This was quick.
Yeah, but it also makes things a little bit harder to figure out what happened, how it went down.
The coroner said the bodies in the trailer had been killed 12 hours before they were found, and that Keith had been dead for 24 to 36 hours when he was found. It made it harder to determine how the crime had been committed, since Keith's body was found away from the trailer, and he may have been killed at that location rather than with his family.
Mm-hmm. They can't tell if the mutilation was, if it was before or after.
They don't seem to
give an answer.
Yeah, give an answer now. Either they don't know or they don't want to.
If there was so much blood in the car from the mutilation, then I would assume he would be alive because, right, isn't there less blood once you are mutilated after death or just any sort of...
I have no idea what went down. And the other thing is someone drove that car with all the blood at a police station.
To a police station, parked it. Was it in their parking lot, right, or like kind of right across?
Outside the police station, right outside. And it's probably not a very big police station. We're talking rural America.
Yeah,
here.
but it's like, I feel like that's the person's way of saying like, hey, look at me. I dropped this off right at your front doorstep and you can't even find me.
Probably.
Seems cocky.
Yes, this one makes me speechless sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
Since the killer had decided to take his time to clean up the scene in the trailer, and please remember, I'll say killer, but we don't know if it's more than one. The police theorized that the amount of effort involved to cleaning up, that the crime may have taken place at night. That they even put an effort, and because they seem to have done it, the police think that it did happen at night. The trailer now was on Route 37, which is a busy state highway, but it could be seen at the time from Interstate 57, which is what I drove back and forth on, almost 2,000 feet to the west. You can actually see it from I-57. It was also an open question as to whether there was one killer or multiple. So even the investigators are trying to figure that out. Now, the investigators were stumped to find a motivation. Laying in the plain view was cash, jewelry, and a video camera, none of which have been stolen.
Interesting.
I know they were in a bad area, but when you're in bad areas, usually there's crime because of poverty or those sorts of related issues. So if murders are committed, it's usually maybe involving retaliation that happened between two people or in order to commit a robbery. But to hear that they were in a bad area and they were murdered with such brutality and none of their valuables were stolen is shocking.
Which usually will eliminate like druggies.
Right.
Because they will go in and what they're looking for is for money or something to steal so they can sell it for drugs. It doesn't appear that anything was stolen.
It just goes to show how much more that this was more like personal or in some way for someone to enact their sick fantasies like a serial killer or something like that. It definitely does not seem like something where it was like a robbery gone wrong or if they were there for any other reason than to harm them.
Wait, so they're on Route 57. Isn't that like a highway?
They are not on Route 57. They're further in, but they're by Route 37, and that's right there. But I-57, they're about 2,000 feet from that. So it's hard if you're going down I-57. If you're going there at the expressway, 65 miles an hour even, you're not going to see them. And at night, you're just going to see lights in a mobile home. They were close to 37, but I don't think they were very close to any neighbors.
I was just wondering if maybe they were victims of opportunity, either by somebody who's traveling or...
I really doubt it from I-57 because there was no exit nearby.
They would have to know that they were there.
They would have to know.
Or they would have to make an effort to get there.
They would have to make an effort to get there. Now, there's no sign of forced entry. The back door was unlocked.
Do we know if they normally kept it unlocked?
No. Okay, that's a whole story. Hold on. And just so you know, the door was probably unlocked when they left, when the killer left. While Keith had been sexually mutilated, investigators ruled out a sexual motivation.
What made them rule that out?
I don't know. And I'm not sure they had the right. What?
I would say it's probably with the autopsies. I don't know about the motivation, but I'm assuming they could tell he wasn't sexually assaulted, but I don't know about sexually motivated.
They said sexually motivated. Okay. I'm not sure how they figured that out, and I'm not going to say I agree with them. Okay? Investigators couldn't find any evidence of extramarital affairs, which could have resulted in a jealous rage, or could they find any debt troubles or grudges?
So, real quick, just want to bring it back. It doesn't seem like he was sexually assaulted besides...
They don't mention that.
Okay.
So, we have all the pieces of the puzzles. We just have to put them in the right order, said Detective Mike Anthis. Inside the Dardeen home, investigators found a small amount of marijuana, but found no evidence that they were drug dealers. In fact, Keith's mother, Joanne Dardeen, suggested that the marijuana may have belonged to the killer.
Oh, okay.
Where was the weed found in the home?
I don't know.
Interesting.
They did not reveal that either. The murders were so brutal that some investigators even theorized that the crime was the work of a cult trying to appease the devil.
Wow.
Please remember this is the 80s and you hear a lot of that. Investigators did deduce that the Dardeen family was chosen, possibly even by mistake. I don't think it was a passerby, said Detective John Kemp. The most plausible story was that the killer had gained entry into the home and at some point left the home with Keith and murdered him, then returned to the home to eliminate the witnesses.
That's true. If they knew the person came in, knew the family, they could have talked and said, hey, Keith, let's go out and talk.
Not by mistake. If it was someone he knew, yes. But if it was someone he didn't know, he would not do that. And there's a reason I'm saying that.
Okay.
So some of these things that the police are saying do not fit his character.
Okay.
And friends and family know him very well, that they say some of the stuff the police are saying are not making any sense.
Okay.
As news of the murders circulated around the area, the residents were left even more fearful than they already had been by the spat of violence. There was a rise in gun sales as well as sales in security systems.
Wait, say that. There was a what in what sales?
There was a rise in gun sales
Okay.
as well as sales in security systems.
In the area?
Yes,
After the murders, right?
after the
Yeah,
murders.
makes sense.
Before, residents left their doors unlocked, but now they double checked to make sure they were locked securely. Nobody was complacent anymore, and everybody stayed aware of their surroundings.
Yeah, after that, I don't think they're going to be comfortable
Yeah.
for a while.
Such a brutal crime wouldn't have been enough to shock a rural community, but the fact was that the Dardeens were not the first victims in the area.
Whoa.
Interesting. I didn't know that.
Over the past 2 years, Jefferson County had been home to 15 homicides, including one particular grim case in which a teenager living in Mount Vernon killed his parents and 3 siblings.
Wow. How old was it?
He was a teenager.
Okay.
I think he was like 16 or something.
Wow.
I don't remember exactly right now. He was young. Of course, they caught him, so it's not
Yeah,
him doing this,
right.
okay?
See, I know about this case, but I didn't even know that there was a bunch of other homicides that were going on in the area.
Yeah, and that's why Keith was looking to leave.
Yeah, which makes sense.
While all these murders seemed unrelated, it was enough to drive locals into an intense state of fear and stress. During the days and weeks following the discovery of the Dardeen family murders, locals took to openly carrying shotguns, and the coroner in nearby Franklin County was quoted as saying the following, that the locals were so afraid to let strangers into their homes that if he ran out of gas on the country road, he wouldn't even bother knocking on the door, and he would instead simply walk to the highway and hitch a ride.
Wait, so say that again?
If he would run out of gas, the coroner.
He said he wouldn't even ring the doorbell at anyone's home because the people were so afraid.
They wouldn't do anything.
They wouldn't even
yeah.
open up. Who knows? Maybe they would even kill him at the door.
Or, yeah.
That he would rather just walk to the highway and hitch a ride,
Wow.
which
Was
isn't
it
safe either.
but yeah. Just goes to show how terrified everyone was.
Right. Now, a friend of Keith's said that after a 10-year-old girl had been raped and murdered in the area in May of 1987, Keith became so protective of the family that one night, when a young woman came by the mobile home asking if she could make a phone call, he refused to let her in.
Okay, so he's definitely very aware of his surroundings and very cautious and very safe.
Yes. So how did 1 or 2 people get into his home when he wouldn't even open the door? I don't understand this.
Well, that's why I was wondering if it was someone he knew.
Or
Yeah.
if he was sabotaged getting out of his car, maybe from work, or somebody pulls up.
Right. I mean, that's also very likely. It's possible that he was getting out of his car. Maybe he got hit on the head or something, or knocked out, or they put a gun up to him. Now, I think Keith is that kind of person that would rather get shot than open up the door for his family. So it's possible maybe they shot him there, or they shot him in the car, hence the blood. The wife heard a gunshot, was going to the door, then she was ambushed.
No, I just think that either he knew someone or something happened that no one plans.
Right.
But the unexpected is really weird. Like for someone to unexpectedly go to this mobile home
Right.
and do all these steps to kill someone and then not steal anything.
Yeah.
That's the weird thing.
That means somebody would have chosen to go out of their way to commit what seems like a psychopathic crime.
Maybe they are a psychopath and they have these urges and they just needed to act on them. But then again, why aren't there other murders similar to this? Or maybe there is. I don't know. Maybe I'll get
Or
into
maybe there is.
that. Right. But I also think it's possible that, like you said, it's weird to not steal anything. So thinking motive wise, maybe, like I said, they knew them. He let him in. Hey, they started talking, or he goes, knocks on the door. Keith comes out. They're talking for a bit. He shoots them or something. The wife hears a gunshot, comes out. and then
Does he know this person or not?
yeah, I'm saying they know this person.
If you know the person, I can see Keith being more willing
Right.
to open the door. If he's not going to open the door for a woman, I just don't see him wanting to open the door for a man.
For sure. That's why I'm saying if he did open the door, it would have to be for someone he knew, which would then align with the something is very personal, that the person or killers personally targeted Keith, and it was, like I said, personal.
I wish back then they had DNA because it would be interesting to see what they would have found.
Yeah, I wonder if there was like a bunch of DNA all over the trailer.
They can test now, maybe.
There might be. I don't know what the police. I mean, there's so many cases that are cold that they do have material going slowly through them. It's going to take years. Even though this one seems like they really should look into it faster than others, but I don't know.
I'm also wondering what if they had forgotten to lock the back door?
I really find it hard that Keith would be that way.
I mean,
all it takes is that one time where you forget.
We grew up in Illinois, and where
we locked our doors.
Right, we locked our doors every night.
It's also because we're very security and safety focused.
But so is he. That's what I'm saying. That he is that kind of person who is clearly the kind of.
But what if his
Wait
wife...
a second. Wait. The back door was unlocked. The front wasn't, which means to me that if the front door was locked, that means the killers left the back door.
Yeah,
that's
because they would have to. They had to leave somehow.
Yeah.
But what if she had been outside watching Peter play, and they just came and found them like that?
Either way,
that's possible.
It's possible, but I mean, somehow they were ambushed in this scenario. In spite of massive investigation involving 30 detectives dedicated full time to work the case and interviewing more than 100 people, the police were not able to determine a motive for the killings, let alone find a likely suspect. There was no evidence of extramarital affairs, drug dealing, financial debts, or sexual motivation. There were tips that came in through the years. The belief now from authorities was that it was a random act, but the killer had to have a reason to be in Ina. With very little evidence to go on, the case quickly came to a standstill, much to the dismay of Joanne, who is Keith's mom. At least once a week, Joanne called the Mount Vernon Sheriff's Office to nudge officers to keep working on her son's case. I carried Keith for 9 months. I raised him. I worshipped the ground he walked on. He was a good man and a good father, she said. And I would never give up. Joanne had her own theories, that somebody wanted Keith to sell drugs and he refused, or Elaine turned down someone's advances, causing them to lash out.
That's an interesting point.
I can definitely... If someone tried to advance on Elaine and she's rejected, it did not happen at their home. So it would be just so much extra work and just all these steps to track someone down and kill her whole family and her husband and mutilate him over just being like rejected. I find that kind of a hard one to agree with.
Unless they were just completely unbalanced.
But if they were that unbalanced, how are they able to do
cleanup?
Right, clean up and get him out of the house.
You can be unbalanced enough to lose your mind when somebody rejects your advances, but you're still smart enough to know that you need to clean up your mess.
I guess. It's just a theory that doesn't hold a lot of weight for me compared to some of the others.
But then why was Keith's genitals brutalized like that?
Because Keith was probably the center of the rage, I would assume.
But you're saying by your reasoning, why would somebody do that and then clean up their mess?
I don't understand what you're saying.
Wait, weren't you just saying that you don't think it's likely somebody is killing them because she rejected them?
Yeah, I was just saying that I think it's a lot for someone to kill a whole family, kill the husband, mutilate the husband, all just out of a rejection. And then I'm guessing the rejection didn't happen there, so the person would have to follow them and all this other stuff. And not that I'm saying it's not possible and that there aren't cases like that. Of course there are, but I'm just saying I'm not.
No, I understand what you're saying, unless as a young teenager who is just discovering those dark parts of himself.
Yeah, but if that was his first time, young teenagers, they're not worrying about cleaning up and hiding their evidence and stuff like that. This person seems older and a little bit more, I don't want to say calm, because the crime scene is nothing but calm. So I feel like a teenager wouldn't be able to clean up, and if it's all rage, I don't know.
Well, she was put into bed with her kids and tucked in.
Right.
That is really weird. I don't know what to tell you. As time passed and the case grew colder and colder, Joanne, which is Keith's mom, continued to pressure authorities to try solve the murders of her son and his family. She gathered more than 3,000 signatures in an attempt to get the Oprah Winfrey Show to do a segment on the murders, which was deemed too graphic for daytime television. Similarly, America's Most Wanted also initially passed on the case, though they later did a segment in 1998 and produced no new leads. Now, it wasn't until the year 2000, more than a decade later, that new information was coming in on the brutal slaying of the Dardeen family. That year, a serial killer named Tommy Lynn Sells, who had been arrested after cutting the throat of 2 young girls near Del Rio, Texas, began confessing to other murders that he claimed he had committed over the years while riding the rails and working at traveling carnivals. One of the killings that Sells claimed responsibility for was the murder of the Dardeen family. He was sitting on death row in Texas when he decided to claim he committed the crimes along with more than 70 other slayings.
What? 70?
Other slayings.
Wow.
Have they confirmed his 70 other slayings?
I'll get into it. Yet the truth of the Dardeen's final moments remain as uncertain today as it was on the evening of November 18, 1987, than when the police first discovered their brutalized bodies. According to Sells, he met Keith at a truck stop or maybe a pool hall. And Keith invited him home to...
A what?
A pool hall. Where they play pool.
Oh, okay.
Or maybe a pool hall. And Keith invited him home to dinner, where Keith then propositioned Sells to engage in a threesome with him and Elaine. Or maybe not. Maybe Sells just saw the for sale sign on the Dardeen's trailer, and with it, an opportunity. Part of the problem with the confession of Tommy Lynn Sells is that he didn't always stick to his own story, let alone the particulars of the case.
So he kept changing his motive.
His story.
Everything.
Well, the first one, I have a really hard time believing that he propositioned all 3 of them to have sex.
Or pick him up at a truck stop. Or
Right.
Yeah, it is not that kind of person.
Right. Sells said that he knew people have their doubts about the Dardeen family murders because they say there is no physical evidence tying him to the family, but there wasn't any of them because they weren't looking for him. He said that he moved and always a transient. Even so,
Can you say that again?
Sells said that he knew people have their doubts about the Dardeen family murders, that he's a part of it, that is, because they say there's no physical evidence tying him to the family. Sells says there isn't any evidence of him because they weren't looking for him. He said that he moved and was always a transient. When Sells confessed in 2000, Joanne was convinced of his guilt. As the years went by, however, her conviction waned, and by this time Sells was executed in 2014, her doubts were significant. Tommy deserved to die for what he did, but I wanted him to stay alive until I know positively he didn't do it. And she said that after his execution. Friends and family have issues with some of his claims. They doubt that Keith would have invited home someone from out of town who he had just met to even have dinner with the family.
Yeah.
Especially given the heightened fear in the area after all the killings over the preceding 2 years. This is what his friend says. He wouldn't even let a young girl in to use the phone. He wouldn't let a 22-year-old man in.
Right.
Yeah.
At that point, that's how old Sells was, by the way. Also, they find Sells' claim that Keith made a homosexual advance to him unlikely. They had never perceived him as even possibly having an interest in his own sex, and the police did not find any evidence of that during their investigation, which they were open to and were investigating. The detectives who interviewed Sells believed that if he did kill the Dardeens, he invented a detail to make the crime seem more justified, In confessing to other crimes, he often included similar stories to make it seem like the victims had provoked him.
It seems like he's just not taking responsibility for anything.
Those Sells confessed to more than 70 murders. At the time of his execution, authorities were only convinced of his guilt in 22 of the supposed killings. The brutal slaying of the Dardeen family wasn't one of them. The police in Texas came to believe that in conscious imitation of another Texas serial killer, Henry Lee Lucas, he was trying to avoid the death penalty by confessing to crimes he had not committed and taking advantage of the judicial system's gratitude. Their counterparts in Illinois thus wanted to take Sells to Ina so they could see how well he knew the area and the locations relevant to the crimes. He claimed he could lead them to the missing evidence.
Let's see it.
However, Texas law does not allow prisoners on death row to be taken out of state, and authorities there were unwilling to find a way to make an exception. So Duncan declined to file murder charges for lack of sufficient evidence. To this day, the chilling Illinois murder case officially remains unsolved.
Wow.
So any ideas or questions?
What theory do each of you think is most likely what happened?
Personally, unless there's something there about Keith that's out of character that no one knows, such a dark secret, I'm not going to go with that there was a dark secret, since even the police investigated. It looks to me, and since he was so caring about his family, it looks to me that either he knew the person or they were caught off guard.
Yeah.
And if they knew the person, for them to be let in, I don't think the police followed that lead at all.
Right. It didn't seem like they were looking for anyone who knew the family.
Right. But then again, if it was someone who knew the family, could one person do all this? I know they can, but they have to be very calculated.
Yeah, you'd have to do it right. You'd have to separate the husband or knock him out or kill him first and then then possibly go back to the husband for the mutilations. And if they did the mutilations while he was still alive, I have no idea how they would do that.
Unless he was shot but not dead yet.
That's true.
But they did shot him.
Yeah.
Here's the thing. Who would kill a 3-year-old, and at the same time, when the mother gives birth to the child, they don't just leave the baby there. They decide to also brutally beat the child up. The baby.
And I'm assuming when whoever went in to the house, at that point, she wasn't in labor. So then she was attacked, went into labor, gave birth, which is not even...
How quickly did she give birth, you know?
And I feel like it's not going to be like 10 minutes.
It depends on each woman.
True.
And if it was traumatic, I wonder if that could have...
Yeah, I wonder if that made it faster or slower or normal.
It could increase it. The body's going into a trauma. So maybe that's the way it saves the child, but giving birth. It could go fast, but the thing is that child, I think, did take a breath.
Right, that's what I'm saying.
I don't even know if Elaine was alive at this point or barely hanging on. Okay. If he's brutally murdered and gagged them and tied them up, what is the purpose of killing the baby?
Because the baby, she's not 3 years old. She can't potentially identify.
No,
Right.
You know?
Was the umbilical cord still attached, or did the person...
I don't have that detail. They didn't release everything. One, because it was gross. Second, I think they're keeping a lot of things because that's another thing. They were trying to keep the information to find out if Sells had the information. I was reading an article and they said Sells was giving them the information you can find in any article. Illinois was not convinced that he was the murderer either.
Right.
He did not give them anything
that was not already released.
Right, correct.
It has to be somebody who's either, in my opinion, a psychopath or absolutely hates the family, or one individual in the family so much that they don't even care if the baby is a baby. They're just going to annihilate it because it's connected and related to.
Okay, hold on. There was a story, Helter Skelter, Charles Manson. They did gory stuff like that. They wanted to take out the baby, but they didn't. It can happen, but they were a group of cults there or something, but they didn't find anything of that happening. These guys kept going. They kept killing.
Yeah.
This didn't happen as far as they know anywhere afterwards like that.
I wonder how good the investigative work was in seeing if there were any other crimes in different parts of the country that were related potentially.
You need to remember back then they did not have databases where they could connect all these. Like
yeah,
they
but
do now.
even now, if there was a family that was murdered very similarly, I feel like it would have come to light.
I think if it happened now, it would hit the media. It would be told over and over again. And even back then, it was told. So I think police stations would be more aware of it.
That's what I think. So I'm like, how can someone just live their life and then all of a sudden kill all these 4 people and then go back to their normal life and not try to do it again? It's just, how do you just do all that? And if you're not a psychopath who's just going to like a serial killer and kill again, how can one person have so much hate towards someone that they do this and then they're just capable of going back to life?
Serial killers kill, right?
But then they kill
travel.
again.
Maybe he did kill.
True, but if he didn't, that's what's also crazy, because if it was like a one and done thing, then that person had just, it's crazy to wrap my mind around that one person could have so much hatred towards a family and then be able to just go on with their life.
And why the Dardeen family?
Right. Why them?
Pick on them? And in a rural part of America, like it isn't like in the city, which is easier because there's so many people.
Maybe it was because they're in rural, like no one could hear them. They weren't really by people. They're in a trailer. They're more isolated. There's not many places for them to run within the home because it's smaller.
Then it has to be someone who knows the area.
Right.
Someone in the area or knows the area.
Seen them or knows them personally, but if you don't know them, why are you going to kill them and then not do it again? You know what I'm saying?
Something is really different about this thing, because if they killed them and stole stuff, that would make sense. And they may even have left the marijuana behind. Mm-hmm. Which I don't think marijuana is going to make you kill a whole family.
No, yeah, I can't imagine.
Yeah,
most, even a lot of drugs don't make people. Some drugs definitely can do, but
right. But I don't see it unless there's something there we're not aware of, or the police. Mm-hmm. I wonder if they still have any evidence that they.
I wonder if they still have the trailer, like if they still have the home.
I don't remember
if it's in.
After
evidence
a while, they release it.
But like with those, that's like they can't release that.
I don't know.
To anyone who would, with the blood spatter, because then they would have to clean it up.
People do that. There are companies that clean it up for you. But even so, someone has the answer. Mm-hmm. This was very well told. Even though they couldn't announce things about it, they still had it in the news. So I would hope someone maybe has the answer and speaks up and answers it. Unless the police decide to look back into this case and decide to do some DNA, if they have the evidence for it. I mean, they had a lot of blood. I mean, could this guy beat everybody up without leaving any DNA? I don't think so.
Getting cut himself if Keith put up a fight?
He held the bat. His DNA's on the bat.
Unless they hit
the doors.
Gloves.
I doubt they checked the doors, though.
I mean, unless he wore gloves, but then back then, like, you weren't worried about leaving fingerprints behind.
Fingerprints you were worried about. You weren't worried about DNA.
Unless your fingerprints weren't in the system.
True.
Because I watched a lot of true crime shows where people back then left their fingerprints because they weren't in the system, so they didn't have to be worried about it. But then it would come back and be an issue for them down the line when DNA got more advanced. If they didn't wear gloves, maybe, but if they did, I don't really know.
I don't know what to say.
Yeah. This whole case is just tragic and mind-boggling.
I feel sorry for the family left behind.
Yeah.
Because they not only lost the family member, they lost the children, the child that was born and was killed. It's really sad.
And they didn't even get to know everything that happened to the family. They don't have an answer who...
No closure.
Right. And then also they don't even know everything that happened because the police are keeping things withheld with good reason. But so they didn't even know everything that happened.
They may not want to know either.
True. And I don't know if I would either.
All right. Let's wrap it up.
All right. That was heavy story.
Thank you, everybody, for joining us this week and listening to the podcast. In the meantime, till next time, please stay on the eerie side. Bye.
Bye. Thank you.
Thank you, and be safe.